It turns out Saudi Arabia is finally going to have some big competition when it comes to video game development and the hosting of video game esport tournaments in the Middle East. Yeah, in the past couple years now that I've been making videos, I've actually made quite a bit of videos on Saudi Arabia. You see, believe it or not, they have been popping off in the video game industry in the last year or few years. Like just last year over the summer, they hosted the world's biggest esports event ever in their capital, Riyadh. That was actually a pretty well-received event. They also have made quite a bit of comments about their investments in video games, and they have made a lot of investments in video games. They have their Savvy Games Group, that's what they call it, and Savvy has done a lot of investing in video games. They even at one point were considering acquiring $2 billion worth of video game developers and publishers. I think that's pretty crazy that they were really considering that. Crazy, of course, in a good way. They also recently partnered with Xsola, which is a huge company that basically establishes payments within video games. So the reason I'm going on about Saudi Arabia is just to make the point of how crazy of an investment they have made in just the last year in the video game development and video game hosting economy. And it kind of seemed to me like they would just remain the top dog in the Middle East and it would just stay that way pretty much forever. But it turns out that the United Arab Emirates has just made a very big investment in a professional esports organization. Now, this is called NIP, which is quite an odd name to say the least, but it stands for Ninjas in Pyjamas, which is also quite odd. But you know what? I'm just going to say I love it. I love names that just stick out like that. I don't know. So similar to how Saudi Arabia invests in different companies around the world through their Savvy Games Group, Abu Dhabi does the same thing with something called the Abu Dhabi Investment Office, or ADIO, and they specifically invested $40 million in the Ninjas in Pyjamas group. Now, to give you a little context here, Abu Dhabi is the capital city of the United Arab Emirates. Now, the United Arab Emirates, or UAE, and Saudi Arabia are right next to each other, but Saudi Arabia is gigantic in size compared to the UAE. But what is very impressive is that the UAE actually has about half of the GDP of Saudi Arabia, and actually the GDP per capita for the UAE is double that of Saudi Arabia. So I was quick to count out Saudi Arabia with this whole thing, but now with the United Arab Emirates coming into this challenging ecosystem of video game development and esports hosting, I'm kind of second guessing my whole thing about Saudi Arabia's dominance. They have a huge challenger here, and the thing is, while Saudi Arabia and UAE are generally considered allies, they do compete with each other quite a bit in terms of economics, and one reason for this is because Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh, generally likes to host a lot of multinational corporations, and they really thrive on these corporations actually establishing their regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia, usually specifically within Riyadh. And I don't know, maybe this is something they were trying to do with the whole esports event last year, but with this $40 million investment in the Ninjas in Pyjamas group, not only is that just big overall for esports and their relationship with the UAE, but part of this $40 million investment deal includes the requirement that Ninjas in Pyjamas has to establish an entity within Abu Dhabi, which is again the capital of UAE, and this has to be their global headquarters. Yeah, to say the least, that is very big for Abu Dhabi and UAE. Obviously with this we're mainly just talking about esports hosting, but this could be huge. This could be the start of something much bigger, much greater than what we're seeing right now. Yes, Saudi Arabia is still huge for video games. They're still doing a lot with it, but UAE could be the next Middle East country that not only gets their foot in the video game industry, but they could actually rise to the top.